Another Headspace episode. Excuse the lip wiping. It's really hot. The atmosphere is doing its thing. Up in the wax spot. This is kind of like our little dungeon where we kind of conjure up all these ideas and we brainstorm and we do a lot of drinking to healthy levels though. We're not alcoholics. We just treat alcohol as an extension of navigating joy. Yeah, it's the TAZ, if you know what that is. Those that know what the TAZ is, hit me up in the comment section. TAZ. Did it Z and it is Z. So that gives you a clue what it is. Anyways, it's VJ, the brother from the ancient mother. I'm here again to try to have another conversation with y'all, my peoples. Sometimes I keep trying to come up with a name for the people that support us. Like, you know how, you know, Mac G has his chillers. But I want to do that. You tell me in the comment section if you guys consent to having a name for the supporters of the Headspace. Maybe the Headspacers, the Headspaces, whatever it is. We can make it up together. Because one thing that I cannot deny is that it feels like family. It feels like talking to family. Every time I come up in here, it honestly just feels like, you know, catching up with old family members who I really appreciate because we share this one unique passion for seeing African culture thrive as much as it can in the context of the limitations that we are governed by, socioeconomically and otherwise. We're all African. I won't say we're black and proud because being black is something specific, but being African is what I subscribe to. We were African before we were anything else, and before we were African we were the deepest thing ever. So whatever that is for you, where you are in Africa, that's how it emanates from me. I come from the people who are normally known as the Xhosa from South Africa, but that's another conversation we can have. But all I want to do is for us to channel the things that locally mean a lot for us. Symbolically, the lineage, the heritage, that's who we are, and that's our power as Africans. We have these stories encoded in our being through physical elders who were there with us. Shout out to my two grandmothers. Eternally you are with me as my teachers. So the episode is about the passing of a South African rap giant who was budding to heights that we could have finally put him amongst the names of the Ricky Ricks, of the AKAs, of the Questas, of the Pro Kids, Proverbs, Kulichanas, Kespanyo Vests, Questas of the South African rap landscape. I forgot a couple of names. Double HP, ooh, can't forget that. That's my favorite, if you needed to know. I think that's the one for me. Double HP, greatest rapper South Africa ever had. If you want to debate me, let's turn it into an episode. But I want to speak to ukusweleka kwebrother yethu, you know, somebody who in the scene, being of the kinship of uXhosa as it's understood, being of the Eastern Cape and tracing my connection to abantu baseKapa in ways that are deeper than an episode can capture. I want to talk first and foremost about why mourning Bravo Le Roux is a big deal. It is probably the biggest death in South African artistry, not just hip hop, since AKA.
Ujolana bafowethu I go by the name Bravo Le Roux, kodwa nenguta Bravo kuwe image yakho nenguta baby yonke South Africa ngoku inbiza na njenge Jongisizwe.
There might have been people who heard of the passing of Bravo Le Roux as of a kind of a South African trendy underscore. I know a lot of people were not yet hip to Bravo, and I want to say that does not mean Bravo was not as impactful and as massively distributed as I'm going to make the argument of. is just only because akusafana kudala, guys. Mainstream is dead. Algorithms tap you into what you like. Bravo was an artist that was capturing a very broad algorithm. He was there for the spaza niggas. He was there for the Xhosa rap people who were floating with trap. He was there for the Xhosa trap or trap cats proper. He was there for the experimental IsiXhosa rap cats. That is a wide margin. There are artists within IsiXhosa who are widely different from each other. Abantu is not like Izithunywa Zehlanga, who is not like Inhloko Zenyoka, who is not like uQueries, who is not like uDangake, who is not like uYakim, who is not like uKhululekani, and by extension Siviel the Prince, by extension Mamelani aka Ohave, by extension Lulamti, entering the Cape Townian landscape, by extension the Spaza movement, most notably iDreamanskap. We're talking about El Nino, Dla, Mabi. It's wide, it spans. Kanyimava is always in there, factoring in as one of the dopest MCs IsiXhosa has ever had. The conversation of where IsiXhosa rap is continues till the pulse of youngins such as iKumankani. Cats that have really gone to the fore to represent what Xhosa hip-hop can be, both from the EC and the Western Cape side of things. My goodness, the Night Owls. Who am I talking about in the Night Owls? Isaac Wilson. We won't mention the other guy because he's a boost. So many people who have contributed to Xhosa rap's rise, sustainability. God damn it. Ifani, an architect who, by the way, if umamele takudala ndakutacha, I'm the viewer joka wakutacha via email and WhatsApp trying to get an interview. Holla at us. We respect you. We're not some go-getter, money maker, influencer scam. Sifuna sibali of Xhosa rap as it has unfolded in South Africa. A sincere story that speaks to its true origins. Goodness me. I remember Ifani back in the days when he was a local artist from the then Port Elizabeth. I was one of the people who felt like, bro, it's okay if wena uglawe yoba atomically Socrates' philosophies. A friend of mine once said, VJ, why a cat calls the microphone umboko? I don't listen to him. Funniest rant I've ever witnessed. I didn't agree with him, obviously, but it was funny because I understood. He came from that English elitism where microphone, when I'm on the mic, I know Mike doesn't have the same Mboko, rather, that's not the same as Mike. Umboko literally sounds like something you hit somebody with, honestly. And the mic is what you use to wield your power as an MC. I agree, maybe Umboko ayingelona gama esinalo elinocacisa lento siyivayo xa sisithi sibambe imic. Xhosa niggas, I think we need a new one. I agree with Manigo on one level. Mboko doesn't have the same aesthetic quality. That's all I understood from that. Mboko, I will not lie, aesthetic. Mbo. African languages are very visual. When I hear Mboko, it's already the better logo. And I know Satan like we go rap. It's better than logo, but not like that. Not like that. So anyways, before I go on a whole Mboko diatribe, what I'm trying to do is position this conversation where I feel it needs to go. The legacy of Xhosa rap. We did an episode on Younger Chief that we were bubbling and trying to cook up about his importance in the center of where Xhosa rap is going.
And it never dropped.
It never dropped. It's our fault. We are probably going to drop that soon. We might do it again because it's a story that needs to be said. Younger Chief is very crucial in the latest reinventions of what IsiXhosa through rap can become. But ndithetha ngalondo, for my people that speak IsiXhosa, as it's called, I know I'm putting the air commas because I know it's a complex history. Ukwamamvengu, ukwamampondomise, ukwamampondo proper. There's all kinds of people. I personally subscribe to the notion that IsiXhosa is a colonial construct. Fight me, but first, IsiXhosa is a label, an umbrella that was brought down to us very sinisterly by white so-called anthropologists. Episode. If you want me to do that, holla at me. Say, VJ, do a whole goddamn episode on the politics of our so-called 11 official languages and how that impacts our music culture. I'd love to do that, but you tell me if it needs to happen. What I want to talk about right now is under the guise of IsiXhosa, we need to respect the legacy of IsiXhosa rappers. Rappers who have tried to take the code of rap and translate it uniquely in this beautiful language that a lot of people seem to be attracted to. Come on. This is fundamentally an episode on Bravo. But the reason I'm yapping on and on and on, ngabanye abantu who you might not think batibene in this story, but really batibene, because in order to understand the impact that Bravo Le Roux had, the impact that Sipho, the man we don't know, was cultivated by, we need to kind of trace back. IsiXhosa rap has its very dubious origins in a lot of places, and I believe we cannot trace the real root of IsiXhosa rap. So this is not an episode about VJ saying finally Sisuka P IsiXhosa ngokurapper or i-rap yesiXhosa isuka P. Ayikho lo mpendulo bantu bakithi, because asinokwazi ukuthi ngophi umuntu oqala waqala urapper ngesiXhosa, because chances are baninzi abantu ebeberapper ngesiXhosa in the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape in different periods. And I probably might make a different episode about that link between all those different people. Maybe we could call it a fundamental IsiXhosa rap network, or the origins of IsiXhosa rap, because it's plural. There's no one origin for IsiXhosa rap. There's a bunch of different movements bubbling at the very same time. Spaza yasekapa, what was called the Afro yalabebai, umculo buciko. There's so many different movements that ultimately led to the foundations of what would later be called IsiXhosa trap, Gyan trap, Gyan rap, Gyan life. Shout out to Isaac Wilson and Joe, who we've always also championed as the fundamental architect of IsiXhosa trap. Check that review out if you haven't checked it out. Maybe we might put the links in the description. Matter of fact, that case, what we should probably do is put all our IsiXhosa rap related episodes in the description as links, because kudala siyiphusha the way of trying to delineate the story of i-rap yesiXhosa in South Africa. Sifikelela kulo mfana ubalulekileyo, somebody who was a peer, a icon, and very much ascending to the point of a legend. Bravo Le Roux's story can be told in places that become endless, but I want to say a couple of fundamental things. First and foremost, Bravo is special because he takes from the Ricky Rick school of thought while also taking from the Pro Kid school of thought. Bravo is trying to speak to the streets while speaking to black aspirational aesthetic quality. Bravo beyazi ndwenhle visually. He always knew how to dress, he always understood how to appear, he always understood his context, he always understood his environment. When you look even the early videos, zakhe kuSlicker on Life, Bravo understood where to position himself brandically. He understood where to position himself as an artist, and that is probably one of the greatest lessons that Bravo has left with us. Kazazi, man. Open up what links speak to you. Understand how to ultimately look at yourself as a brand. I know it's kind of like a thing that has slavish aspects to it, where you're thinking about how to sell yourself, but also it is that. But also look at it as how to build yourself and find your people. Because capitalism puts us in this position where a commodity fetishism. It's this value system that capitalism has left for us, where we value the product more than we value the people that make it. Our fetish is with the thing as Itengayo. We don't even care Yenzongbani as Ivangeli. This is why our treatment of artists is abysmal. It's awful. Because capitalism teaches you that the artist is working for you to create good music. So when you just listen to the music, you don't really care about the artist that makes it. And that's why a lot of people can separate the art from the artist. Because for them, it was simply about the art, it was never about the artist. Nobody really cared about what Bravo was doing. A lot of people were. But a lot of people were as well. A lot of people weren't, but a lot of people were. So my argument is that capitalism encourages unaware consumers who appreciate their product but don't really think about the person behind it. Bravo was behind the product, but he also understood what y'all niggas wanted from him. You want the IsiXhosa guy who's going to speak for the underprivileged. You want the township rapper that's going to reinvent Xhosa rap for the new generation. You want somebody with a bit of swagger, with a bit of charisma, and with a heart of gold. Snesipho was that. Bravo, I've always liked his name because Bravo means well done. Bravo means you've achieved it. Bravo means let's celebrate to you. He affirmed what that meant before he even achieved it. And I mean, it goes for being a rapper, you have to come up with the coolest name ever. So I will go on record as saying Bravo Le Roux is one of the coolest rap names ever, because it's a connection of bravo, you've done it, uyenzile, you've succeeded. Even as a manifestation, awukayenzi kodwa seyigqikiwe ndangam. Igqikiwe from the beyond, from the beneath, from the above, everywhere igqikiwe. That's where the Bravo aspect comes in. Maybe Dakeza, you should roll the actual name as I put it together. But the Le Roux lends itself to JC Le Roux, French sophistication, a kind of air of ndiyaphezulu. I am going to rise and understand the fine details of culture. Didn't he do that? Didn't Bravo in his last days finally reach the milestone of touring Europe, of being acknowledged as an international artist? Didn't he, before the days that he passed away, really understand his direct connection to the rest of the world? I think he did. I think he fully grasped umntu anguye when he was beginning to bubble. But I'm making this episode because this is what we might have observed. As Bravo fans, Indo esibonileyo is probably something that spoke to what he was beginning to achieve as an individual artist. But I want to speak to what Bravo was beginning to accomplish as just the dude. As just the dude, there were problems that we cannot conceive. There were issues that we cannot even begin to understand. So I want to say that Bravo Le Roux's death to us signifies more than just the passing of a great artist whose potential seems taken away from us. Things were finally beginning to pop. So many of us have dreamed of that place where finally, I mean, all the money, all the trinkets. Bravo was a new father with a wife. It's the heat. With a wife, how is coughing the heat? Figure it out. With a wife that I think a lot of men would be like, oh man, he's made it. Beautiful wife, successful career. I'm only setting these things up to paint the external picture of what fans probably might have seen. An artist they revered coming from the dusty streets of a Khayelitsha to emerging to become a fucking cultural icon. Because Nzwambu, because Ngazwe, understand that Jewish is his thing, imagery is natural, his effect and affect for aesthetic is natural. I mean, Bravo could have easily been a successor to Ricky. It's weird that he killed himself too, because maybe he loved Ricky so much that that was probably one of the few people he could relate to. We know that was one of the fundamental people Ricky Rick put on as he was building what would become his living legacy. Now that he's gone, you're cutting fast and everything Ricky did. Bravo was one of those artists Ricky saw a glimmer in before anybody who was really commercial like that was acknowledging him. What did Ricky see in Bravo? You know what I think it is? I'm speculating. What I think it is Ricky saw the tough grazing between how capitalism forces us into a place where when we're trying to innovate, we're going to run into the walls of the politics we're operating in. And so the story of Bravo Le Roux to me, I think is something I want to use for us to zoom in on the business of the music we listen to. Yazazi fans as Nancy have not been inculcated to even care about the business yomculo, because umculo is that we intake as a pastime, maybe at best as some kind of spiritual extension that helps us cope with our lives. But we hardly ever think about the people that make the music we swear makes us connect with higher powers. And I want to say it's menacing, it's sinister. We look at these people as privileged because they're on TV, and we've been taught that being in sight of the spectacle is being special. You know, the moment we said TV, I remember I had one cameo, Gusali Matunzi. Shout out to Brown and Chaos. And I went home that day, I was a high school kid, and there were girls I wanted who signed my school t-shirt, and one of them, I'm not mentioning it too much, even gave me her bra. I might have it till this day, who knows, I might not. My point is, fame has this weirdly fascinating thing it does to people, that just by virtue of being seen to be larger than life, you feel like a god in the presence of normal people. And I think we forget that these people are normal, they just happen to be in front of a camera. The irony as I speak in front of a camera, because I'm nobody who has a couple of things to say that I think you'd be interested in. So ultimately, the Bravo Le Roux legacy, and I mean, there's the whole, forgive me if I call it trendy mourning. Like when I say mourning, I mean like actually grieving for a dead person, not like insane. But I mean like, sometimes I think of it as somebody who is very active on social media. I think of how everything you do ultimately boils down to a shared status, and then may he rest in peace. Your whole life kind of feels like it's been bottled down to the callous legacy of a couple of statuses and some shit you might have said in the past that might rear an ugly head when people want to cancel you beyond the grave. There's a very strange politics going in the water of social media, and I don't think it's accidental. I think the people who create these companies that are now as large as they are didn't quite see what the blueprint would become. Mark Zuckerberg isn't that smart. All of these niggas aren't that smart. They didn't see this thing as it is now unfolding. My goodness, Facebook started out as a dating site for college students who wanted to hook up at university. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg had the foresight to see that it would be a worldwide, interconnected network of kinship, trend, culture, and probably the most fundamentally influential platform that displays where we are as a people. I don't think he would have seen that. I don't think that kind of an engagement was even foreseen. I think these things happen as they evolve and as they unfurl, and that's the beauty of life, is every idea is incomplete until it starts revealing itself slowly but surely. And this is why we have to mourn, and we feel like mourning for artists whose legacies seem to have been cut off at a crucial period, because we can't help but envision how they would have completed themselves. Mythology has left us with the legacy of wanting to see stories end. But in life, in real life, some stories don't end, they kind of just get cut off. And that's the end. It isn't a neat, linear process of rags to riches to eventual success. That's a story that's been sold to us by the movies, media, and the whole structured system. Stories don't really work like that. You're born, you don't know why, you figure it out, you kind of fuck up, and life deals with you how it will deal with you as you try to deal with yourself. Success probably isn't even the point, but I'm going into philosophical grounds. I want to keep it on the music. Musically speaking, we can't say Bravo's story was cut short because none of us have the evidence of where it was supposed to go after this. The only thing we know is what we were influenced by. And what allows us, those of us who were fans, to mourn. We mourn because we felt something growing in the midst of what is developing. I'm here to say it's real. There was something growing in the midst of all of it. But it died. And it wasn't because of anybody's fault in particular. What it was is a systematic thing. I think we need to understand artists are slaves under capitalism too. So they are faced with the contradiction of doing what they want versus what sells. They are faced with the contradiction of doing what feels natural versus what market statistics and studies have shown. They are faced with really risking going against the label with playing it safe and getting that money. And we've seen the story of South Africa very well, of artists who were champions of the culture and now they are flashing their Capitec account details in front of us. How does that happen? How do people who were seemingly larger than life show you their actual bank card so that you can help give them money below minimum wage? How does that happen? How does fame dwindle down to groveling for public support? How did Deleuze go from fresh to deaf to having a stroke and I can't pay the bills for it? These are the real things that I don't think we want to talk about in South African music culture, because artists are reckless with their money, labels are still greedy, capitalism prioritizes the rich. As a gullible artist who wants fame, you are the pawn. Even if you're influential, creative, and cutting edge, you will end up having to fight for the rights to something like your actual stage name. These are real things. And I don't think the fans have been sensitized enough to understand i-artists ngabantu nabo. Yilondo zikwazi to have a whole successful career and still end up having to ask money from us. Because I know you know a couple of people that had it good and didn't anymore. This is not exclusive to the everyday folk. The artists are trying to figure out capitalism versus the interest of the way their art affects people. That's the other thing as well. Nobody prepares you for how the spectacle of all of this thing will change you. Nobody prepares you for how you can go from just being normal and being ignored by people virtually, because most of us go being ignored by most people, abakwazi, to being the guy that everybody knows when you step into the mall and you can't buy your child some new shoes because a fan wants an autograph. We don't speak about these things. That's why when some of these amapiano artists honestly have the courage to tell fans about Tlshalabo in their personal capacity, they trend for being disrespectful for the fame they have. Fans have been taught to think they're responsible for the artist's success, which is not too far from the truth, but it definitely isn't. You are not responsible for the artist's success. You are an instrument that is part of a larger holistic scheme that allows for artists to succeed. Artists don't make money just because you check out their videos or download their music. They make money because of mathematics, statistics, sales, calculated figures, shows, merchandise, a whole lot of things that the average fan doesn't even give a hoot about, let alone yazaz. So I'm doing this episode because I think we look at artists who kill themselves. I'm not gonna say some cheesy thing like unalived. Maybe I will monetize with that case, but you'll forgive me. I think some things are glazed over because reality is something you can't profit over in the algorithm. So even if this video doesn't make any money, this is just one of those things that have to be done for the culture. Fans, ndicela nibe accountable for the fact that the artists are not working for you. They have a relationship with you, like your girlfriend or your mother. It's complicated. It's somebody you get stuff from, but you need to give back to. It's a thing that sometimes you fight, sometimes you don't understand each other, sometimes you even fall out and you find yourself back to each other again. It isn't a clear-cut customer-provider relationship like you think it is. You are part of why artists want to kill themselves. You expect so much because of the aesthetics and the expectations that have been set for an artist to achieve, and you are the reason that creates a hammer on the head of the artist to feel like they need to live up to these things. Nini, you are also responsible for Bravo's death. No, you really are. We really are. We didn't take accountability when it came to Ricky. We didn't take accountability with Double HP. We thought it was some shit going on in their own personal lives, but that's not reality. But the truth is that Imali Yabo is connected to our love for their music. And our love for their music is connected to Imali Yabo. So if they kill themselves somewhere, somehow, as if how could somebody I loved so much and supported have thought that there is no reason on the world to keep staying? It means that there's something bigger that you might not quite understand. And I want to empathize to that in this episode and just say we need to start understanding that capitalism uses the artist as much as it uses us. I'm not trying to create some kind of woke angle on music. I'm saying these are things that are embedded in the way we relate to music. That's why some of us will never cancel R. Kelly, no matter how many underage girls he fingered. That's why some of us will never cancel Puff Daddy, no matter how many permanent bruises are on Cassie's ankles or shoulders. Because we weren't there, nigga. We were making it hard because we won't stop and we can't stop. We were being bad boys for life in an era where we're learning about ourselves and growing up. And that is the contradiction that we're all trying to navigate about art. Celebrities are people we grow to be fond of because we see parts of ourselves in them. They are there for memories that are eternal. They are people whose wedding ceremonies, first time they had sex, fell in love, had a child, are connected to somebody who is cancelled right now. Do you expect that person to just be obedient to politics and act like their first-born son was not born to I Believe I Can Fly or something like that? I think we need to start thinking more holistically about the issue of cancelling, because it will allow us to think more holistically about the issue of our relationship with the artists. It's a very toxic one as it stands, because we think they owe us and they think we owe them. So this episode is for us to understand that we don't owe each other anything. The love is genuine, and if it's not there, it's either because we don't feel it, or there are things that are going on in our lives that most people don't know, that are just too heavy for us to speak out about. So my last segment is about what could have been the thing that did it for Bravo. The thing that I think would have did it for Bravo was the thing that I think did it for you in those days where you didn't want to open your curtains and go to work because it all felt like it's too much. The things where you don't know how to pay school fees for your child because the rate at which the cost is rising does not quite equate to your paycheck. The way in which capitalism robs us all of a really fulfilled life, but it keeps selling the idea of a perfect vision. We're feeling it in South Africa. I know you all are feeling it in other places in the world. And we tend to forget that celebrities are people just like us, and they probably feel it even more, because to be a public figure means your job is about relating to other people even when you can't relate to yourself. And I don't think most of us understand what that feels like. At best, you go to work and you have to deal with a whole bunch of assholes that are within the insular system of how you make money. Celebrities make money by being known. That's a very unhealthy relationship to your money. It means that if you are going to make money, it relates to attention. And attention is not always something you want, especially when you don't feel good about yourself. But it means that you always have to find a way to garner it. And I think ultimately you can die because of attention. You can die because too many people are so attentive to what you do that they feel entitled to your actual life. You express a view, they are quick to tell you what to do with your views because they feel like they made you. We need to take accountability for the way we speak to our musicians and our artists because we're making them feel like they owe us the gratitude of being model citizens. And the artists need to be accountable too. All that fame you get real quickly and all this influence, I know nobody prepared you for it. But at the very same time, this is the closest thing anybody can have to being a god on the earth. People fall down when you play your cheesy little songs. Girls will open your legs up for you, or guys, or whichever way you swing. People will submit their own willpower to be in your presence because you appear to be ethereal. You appear to not even be real. They don't think about you taking a shit because it doesn't equate that you do that shit. You make such great music. You can't have bowel movements if you make such classic songs, supposedly. But this is the reality of the way we relate to celebrities. We supernaturalize them. And come on, Kanye West said it better before and after his apology. No one man should have all that power. That's probably why he went nuts. One of the reasons. We're just not meant to be worshipped by most people on the planet. It's an unhealthy thing. It makes you feel like you're not like everybody else. Some celebrities fall for that. I don't think Bravo was one of them. I think Bravo always understood ngowase culture, ngowase Kapa, ngowesiXhosa. I finally said something very touching in one of his statuses. He spoke about how they plotted for success and one of their slogans was IsiXhosa to the world. I felt like shedding a tear when I read that because I was like, maybe it could have happened. But it didn't. And I think a lot of people are mourning, and I'm not trying to bring some closure, but I'm just trying to add to the conversation of legacy. We treat dead celebrities like what ifs, but I want us to treat this moment like a what do we do now? Because if we think what if, then we freeze the potential of what we could have done when Bravo was alive to when he was alive. But now that he is dead, not unalived, but dead, to circumstances that affect everybody under the alienating yoke of capitalism. I think if you're a fan, and even if you're not, if we mamele an episode, you owe yourself the opportunity to consider the way you relate to celebrities, influencers, TikTokers, celebs, whatever they call themselves. These people with a whole bunch of influence that they don't know how to control are also very, very vulnerable to the way in which you shape the dialogue. Bravo, obviously, in the midst of potential evolving fatherhood, a potential evolving career, he chose to end it all. You wouldn't do that if you thought there was anything worth staying for. And it isn't because you didn't love anything enough to be alive. It's because the pain was too much for anything that you might have loved. So if family of Bravo are even watching this, I'm sorry if anything might have offended you, but I was simply trying to pay honor to the fact that suicide is not a disgrace. It's a symptom of something larger than all of us. Just like Bravo was larger than all of us, but at the very same time, he was one of us. My name is Vijay, the brother from the ancient mother. I don't know what I can do with myself because of capitalism, but I know that it's here and we need to figure it out. And rest in peace to Bravo.